So what is up, guys? Welcome back to the More Nick Ackerman channel. And after 4 months, I didn't expect the MacBook Neo to be as powerful and as amazing as it is. Now, back in around June 25th or so, Apple did increase the price of most of their product line, except for a few, and the MacBook Neo was not spared. This one went up $100 to start at $699 and goes up to $799 for the 512 gig option you see here. Now, with recent MacBook Air discounts over the past couple of years, now that price doesn't seem super appealing as it did when it first launched at $599. But there is one thing you can keep in mind: if you are going to be getting this on the education store, it still starts at $599 and $699 for the 512. And that is still significantly under MacBook Air prices, which have went up. So this is still quite a cheaper way to get into the macOS ecosystem in the terms of the lineup. But that aside, let's just talk about why I think after 4 months, this is pretty much a life-changing product. And it is life-changing because it's, for a lot of people, one of the only ways they're going to be able to get into the Mac OS ecosystem if they have had budget constraints in the past on things like MacBook Pro and MacBook Air. I think this opens the doors for a lot of people out there who are just willing not to spend what those laptops cost, because maybe they're invested in Windows, or maybe they just don't need that extra horsepower that some of those pros offer. This finally can get you into the Mac OS ecosystem. And the first one I want to talk about is software. So getting into this Mac OS ecosystem right here really does open up a lot of creative functionality, including things like Final Cut Pro, iMovie, and more, but also building on your ecosystem, because a lot of people do have things like the iPhone, the iPad, but they just don't have a MacBook. They might use a Windows laptop because they don't want to buy a MacBook or whatever at the prices that they've charged in the past. But now you can go ahead and get yourself a MacBook here, and while this one is not as fast as some of the pros, it can still do video editing. It can still do plenty of tasks, even with its 8 gig of RAM, because remember, the RAM on here is unified RAM, and so that means that the RAM does swap. It has memory swap, which allows the MacBook Neo to stay fast even when you wouldn't think it would. So while I would have appreciated 12 to 16 gigs on here, this MacBook still hasn't given me much trouble for what I do need to do with it on a daily basis. After 4 months, it's been pretty phenomenal. Now, we talked about how a lot of people talked about how great it performed in the initial reviews, and you've seen some creators really push this product to its limits, and then it would choke up a bit. But I'm going to tell you right now, as somebody who's really using this day to day, it doesn't ever choke up for the type of real world use majority of folks are going to be doing. Now, for those people out there who are pushing it beyond that, they already probably didn't buy this. They're never going to experience that because they're not buying this to push it to those limits. So the people who do get this, and the way they're going to use it, will likely almost never ever run into any hiccups whatsoever. But they have the wide array of polished applications, to have the iMovie, to have the games app, to have the journal, to have the maps, everything, the news, everything that mixes up with your iPhone, and then have the ability to project your iPhone onto the screen. This is really just a great add to your ecosystem if you've never had a Mac before, at a price that's more accessible than ever. Yes, it did go up a little, but it's still more accessible than other Macs in the lineup. Now, the next one that I've really enjoyed and I cannot stop thinking about, and I think it's life-changing, is the portability. Now, for a lot of people, they might have had clunkier laptops before, heavier laptops, or maybe not as smooth as this one, but this one is in a pretty compact form factor. One of the things a lot of people will notice when they go to the Apple Store and they see this is they're going to think this thing is small. Like, that's the first opinion I've had with others who went with me to check these out. They just said they're small. They just, are those tiny? But in the real world everyday practice, this laptop actually feels incredibly portable to slip into a bag, to take on a plane, to go ahead and put on a desk, to take to the coffee shop, anywhere you may want to take it. It feels about like an iPad 13. It feels pretty small like that. But it does have some weight to it, so it doesn't feel cheap. While it does have a cheaper looking keyboard compared to the MacBook Pro, it just feels hefty. It feels premium, but also light and super portable. It's also a lot more curved on the edges, which makes it feel a lot like your iPhone. If you have an iPhone, which I'm sure a lot of you do, if you're looking at a MacBook Neo, but at the same time, it's just been incredible for portability. And my favorite since the Pixelbook Go, if you remember that laptop, this is a lot like that design, but in a metal Apple unibody chassis right here. So one of the best things about the keyboard here is that it does use the scissor switch mechanism, and this keyboard it really just does feel incredibly nice to type on. It's comfortable. It's very clickety clackety, you know what I'm saying? Like it's got nice travel on it. And it actually has been a little bit annoying at nighttime, not having the backlit keyboard, but I actually did a comparison with this in one of my other Apple products with the black keyboard, the MacBook Pro. And I found that with this one, I could still kind of see it in the dark lit situations because of the light color combo they went with. Now I tried the blue one. That one's a little darker than this citrus, but you can get the blush that also has a pretty light keyboard, and the silver has like the whitest one. So they're pretty easy to see, and they still feel like a premium keyboard, like any other Apple keyboard, which is very nice on this keyboard. Now, the thing about it is that the deck lid is a little bit smaller because it's more portable. So where you rest your palms, there's not a huge deck lid to rest your palms because there's just a little spot right here. But if you're used to smaller laptops and stuff, this is not going to be an issue. Also, if you have smaller hands, this will feel bigger on your palms than maybe my big hands right here. But this is a little bit small. The trackpad, I think, for the size of this laptop is actually quite large, and it's very perfectly centered. So I do like that. But generally, the keyboard itself has just been a joy to use. It really is. I think if you're a quick typer, you're going to feel right at home at this thing. It does have good spacing. It has really good travel, and everything just feels like a premium keyboard just without the backlit. You also get the Touch ID over here, which allows you to scan your finger if you go with the 512 gig option, which I do recommend if you can swing it, because a 256 gig storage is going to fill up really fast and potentially could give you a little bit of a slower experience. But I would prefer a backlit keyboard on the next option, or in the next version of this. But even if they didn't bring it and they still just increased the performance, it still would be a compelling option, even if they didn't bring that, because it hasn't been too much of an issue. A lot of the times you're going to be using this while it's the daytime, you got lights on. You're probably not going to be the type of person using this is probably not coding into the wee hours of the night where they need backlit keyboard. And if they do, they should probably just go with a MacBook Air, if I'm being honest with you. It has a taller screen anyway to see more of your things you're doing with coding and stuff like that. So I personally think that, and you could still do it on here, but I just personally think that this keyboard is fine for what it is. It really is. Now, one of the things that you probably were thinking that might not have been so great is the display, but you'd be wrong if you thought that, because after several months, I still open this up and I don't feel like I'm using some cheap display compared to even some of my OLED panels. Now, let's be real. My iPad Pro with the tandem OLED blows this display out of the water, but that's only when I'm considering using it for media. If I'm using this display for productivity, I actually prefer to use the MacBook Neo because of its LCD display. I like LCDs for this productivity because I don't want to be sucked into a very vibrant OLED panel that is distracting. Some people do like, though, the contrast ratios and they don't find it a big issue. But personally, for me, I do like working on LCD. I think it's a little bit easier on the eye for, just doing productivity tasks. So I do like having that here. But generally, it gets bright enough. It doesn't get nearly as bright as some other Apple products, and you will be having to crank this thing up to the max during the daytime, which does eat into the battery a bit. But I would say overall, I still look at this and don't feel like I got ripped off with the display. I feel like I got a nice display for what I paid. Kind of reminds me a lot of like the entry-level iPads, where the entry-level iPads will give you a really nice screen, but some other areas you can tell they cut on, like it's a more of a hollow screen, maybe not as bright as a Pro. It's kind of the same thing here for the MacBook for sure. Now, one of the areas that has seriously impressed me with this, and it could be life-changing for those of you who've had clunkier, worse laptops in the past, is battery life. The battery actually lasts significantly longer than you would expect. It also charges on a USB-C iPhone-like charger, so that also makes things more portable in the bag. But it's an all-day laptop easily at school, classes, whatever the case may be. It's an all-day beast right here for the size. Now, if you're going heavy on games, watching videos, watching movies, you might drain this thing a little bit faster, but there is no way you leave the house with 100 and you're going to be draining this to 0 by the end of your school day. It's not happening. This thing right here just absolutely lasts and lasts and lasts. I actually don't even have to charge it every day. I charge it like every few days with my type of use, because I do a little bit 2 hours usage here, 2 hours there, and 3 days later, I still got like 40% battery. So this kind of reminds me of like an iPhone, for example, one that like just lasts a full day and then some. It's kind of like that on the MacBook Neo, which is to say very good. Now I want to move on a little bit to talk about the Trackpad 4 months later. It's very clicky. Now I can't really prove that this is life-changing. I mean, it's not really life-changing on a trackpad, but it is clicky and it's very responsive. Now I do kind of like it because over time, it's kind of satisfying to know that every time you hit that click, there is some mechanical feedback that you do feel, and you kind of know that you are pressing it. It is a little bit refreshing. It does, if you press this a lot though, you can feel it a lot more than a force touch. So it doesn't give you that like premium, luxurious, like feel of the force touch, but it's still good. It's still a good trackpad. So I've enjoyed that as well. Now the speakers on this product are not life-changing. I can't say that. They are good, but they're not groundbreaking. They're firing out the sides. They don't get extremely loud like the MacBook Pros, but they get louder than you would expect for this product right here. So I have to give it the generic, it gets the job done on the speakers, because that's kind of how I feel about those after the several months of ownership with this guy. But I gotta say, in my final verdict, the real world of this, I'm just seriously impressed with this product. This product was a game changer, I think, for the macOS ecosystem. Hopefully they can get the price, stop increasing the price, do not increase the price no more, because I think we're at its limits already. I'm pretty sure many people have wrote this one off the list just from that price increase. But after real world use, it's like this is just so much better than a lot of Chromebook options, because it can combine with your iPad and your iPhone, your Apple Watch, all that stuff. And it just never feels like an underpowered crappy laptop, which I do like. And it didn't cost $1,000, which I also like. And why I called this title life-changing with the MacBook Neo is because I feel like this can open up a world of new creators. I feel like it can open up a world of new programmers, new users, and people that just need a tool to get the job done in their future journey and ventures into what they're trying to do and create with their life. And I think that they might have been limited before by some cheaper Chromebook and Windows options, but no longer with something like the MacBook Neo, especially if you're getting into the world of creative applications. So love this product right here. I think it's been life-changing for certain folks out there, and 4 months later, it's been a blast to use. The citrus color just brings it to life, reminds me a lot of the Cosmic Orange, just pops this one as well. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, comments, concerns about this product, maybe you're picking one up for school, or maybe you're picking one up just for casual use, let's discuss it down below in the comments section. I'll catch you on the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.